A lot of you have been sending messages, lots of you sending links to, research about AI and all of that. Yeah, thanks to all of you. This morning we're joined in studio by Kobe Spike Nkrumah, who's the host of the Joy Geek Squad. I've been listening to him on Tuesdays talking about AI and everything with my namesake Winston. And I listened to him the last time. Raymond, he was looking for Apim and Kuntumbre.
Yes.
Yes, you didn't. One was an Indonesian food.
Yes.
Why do Ghanaians do that? I mean, in all fairness, right? You see, there was this conversation about people say they are looking for palm fruit soup. Palm fruit. When they started with Abenkwai, they were not getting any results. Yes.
So they want to show you that they can't do all.
Yes, they can't do all. and they say, "Oh, I told you." And they converted to palm fruit soup.
Then
it worked. Apparently, somebody had a write-up on. In fact, the write-up was really about how. So when you query further, how he got that information is sharing with you. It pulled up that write-up long time ago about why we should not call it palm nut, but it's the fruit rather that's used for the soup, and it actually brought out details from that. But you see, the funny part is that then they extended to other areas.
No, he tried Apim and Kuntumbre.
In all fairness,
I think
the fact that people call Konkonte other names in the Republic does not mean that AI should.
But hold on, Apim, but Apim took you to Indonesia, right?
It did.
Yes. there's some food in Indonesia which is made with flour and yeast and sugar and
sugar.
Yes,
it's called Apim.
It's called. Yeah, or maybe they have a different pronunciation. Maybe it's called Apem.
Yeah, but it took him. So I was listening. I was driving home and I was just laughing in the car. I was like, we were like, oh no, we should write more about Apim so that we get to know. But it gave you a lot about Kuntumbre.
Yes, indeed it did.
Yes, it did.
Because there's a lot of writers on Kuntumbre.
Exactly.
Even with the name Kuntumbre being used.
I'll get back to you, Raymond, because we're going to be setting the tone for this conversation. Why it's important to have this conversation today. But we also joined via Zoom by Selom Brante, who is Vice President of Imani Center for Policy and Education in Africa. Let me say good morning to you. Selom, hope you're doing very well.
Yes, I am. Good morning to Winston, Kobe, and Raymond. Great talking to all of you, big men.
Yes, I think we can hear you, but your the volume seems a bit low. If you could just speak up for us, we'll try and work. Working it from this area too. But
face the wall.
He should what? Face the.
No, how do you search for face the wall and purported to be food that he should know? Really?
Raymond, so let's get into the conversation. Today we've been having discussions, and you and I have been having these discussions about AI and how it's changing the world. And we felt, look, this is a discussion we should have with the rest of the world. Why is the AI conversation important today?
Because we are part of the world. Because there are uses that will fascinate you. Because they are, I was telling you about, there is a Reddit post that is some summary of what people generally considered the very useful, or if you like, use of AI that they have enjoyed or it's come top on the list. Creating an action plan from meeting notes. Except you don't meet in an office, or you don't have a job doing, or you don't have anything doing. This shouldn't be something that you should have a problem with doing. And using PowerShell script to automate tasks in Windows, suggesting SEO optimization, titles, target phrases, and description for blog posts, drafting emails, summarizing meetings and clarifying action items, creating to-do list or brainstorming ideas, editing content or rewriting with specific tones, drafting meal plans, not Apim, drafting meal plans and shopping lists, using ChatGPT as a tutor for learning new concepts, journaling and seeking advice, writing and debugging database queries, and rewriting emails professionally to improve the tone. Now, improving non-native English writing skills, generating speeches from PowerPoint notes, and creating image prompts, writing documentation for code, and developing lesson plans and summarizing curriculum outlines for teaching. These are just the ones that teachers and people have basically said, oh no, this is how it was most useful to me in this area in our lives. We do this thing. Sometimes it takes us months, days to work it out the way we should be working it out. And because when you follow most of the blogs that deal specifically with AI, not a week passes with new advancements that Western, you just say, oh yes, this could help me last week if I had it on this or that. This could have helped me not develop, but come to a better conclusion on this or that, or improve my writing in this area. One of the places I realized, and I was talking about proofreaders. In fact, in all fairness, the availability of free tools for proofreading today, if your entire job in the world was to do proofreading, I won't pay for that. I'll not even ask you to do that. I'm not saying that your English degree is useless. I'm saying that as we speak, it is better for me, it is simpler, it's cheaper, and it's within a short frame. If I ask you Winston to do it for me, you give me this, you say you are busy, you give me hours, you even ask me for money on top of it. If I'm lucky, you give me discount. But that's your job. So
that's why I pay for the degree.
Yeah. But I could get it here for free. So even if I set up an office, half of the time I know my staff can do things that they don't have to pay for or pay an external person to do so. Generating art, logo. See, a group like 4 were doing, like, not a business but setting up a company. One individual was supposed to go get somebody, a designer, to design logo. This designer was just telling us stories and all of that. We woke up one day and the epiphany came, and the other gentleman said, okay, let me do this and share the options with you. The art generative and the logo designs that are available on the internet today, you'll be shocked. Some of them very free, some of them have to pay some more for it. And it helps, see, building websites. The period where you have to pay somebody, if I do it, I have to do subscription to. Every year we come there and say that, oh, this year I have to pay this amount of money. What? It can be done within hours. With your specifications, with your tuning and all of that, does not make your business easier, cheaper for you. Even if you are supposed to subscribe to it, it's way cheaper than the gentleman who is taking the money from you and pretending that they are still running your website for you was going to actually charge. Yes.
But you're taking away his job.
No, I'm not taking away his job. I'm just saying he should do something different with all the skills. No, but I'm looking at it from my perspective and how it could be useful.
I'm also looking at it from his perspective.
Yeah, but you take your time. You come to the job of the person too. But you have set up your business. You don't have money to do all of these things. So if it can help you from your bedroom, because people start small and they are worried about all of these compounding costs and how it makes it too difficult for you to run any unit. I'm saying 2 people are running a new website. It's selling clothes, right? Okay, they call it a thrift. I don't know.
Thrift shop.
Yeah. We call it fools.
Yeah, but they call it
But
thrift.
the younger people call it thrift. Yes, but
It's swag.
yeah, so fools, yeah, it's no longer acceptable. But and they are running it. And I was shocked. They did everything afresh. Not people who were competent in computer science or anything close to it. They didn't need somebody to build them the website. They need somebody to evolve that. Even their writings today. So they just give details. We are posting these pictures about these kind of things. Then it will form it into a nice post. Then they put up the post. You get me? Ideally, they have wanted somebody whose job was to be doing that job of posting, like Aaron. Posting and purportedly managing social media. But that particular space, I can do it without having to spend extra money that I don't have, money that as a beginner. And I'm saying that these are things that no matter which space you belong to, it will help you do your job better.
Let me bring Salom in before I get in studio with Spiky. Yes, Salom. So, we're having a conversation today. I saw you posting about artificial intelligence. We'll get into all the concerns there are about it. But today, why is this conversation very important?
It is important because I think we are at a point where we were, I think, about 30, 40 years ago, where the introduction of personal computers became sort of mainstream. It really transformed everything that we know today. It transformed entertainment, it transformed legal work, it transformed music, it transformed filmmaking, it transformed finance as we know it, it transformed economics as we know it. We're able to begin to build different kinds of models around which our lives existed on. And what it did was that it created more opportunities for people. In fact, it created whole industries that would not have existed today. The introduction of the personal computer, we thought, or some time back, we thought was really like a huge transformation. But what has happened after the introduction of the personal computer and the uses we have found for it, which today we are discussing, is the fact that we now have created much more information for use in many different areas than we can even imagine. So they say today, for example, the average information you process in a day, 100 years ago, you would have processed that whole information over a period of 40 years. And that is how transformative it has become. What do we do with all this information, or how do we process, or how do we handle this information? I mean, everybody is producing probably about 1 gigabyte or 2 gigabytes of information every day. So many data points to think about, from the time that you get up, the kind of food you eat, your heartbeat, the decisions you make in terms of financial decisions, in terms of sales decisions, in terms of what you want to look at, in terms of what you want to do. All of these now become very important for many multiple industries. AI or AI models now are very important because they take us to the next step of what we do with these things. We have the raw data or the fuel to drive an engine or to drive a different type of reasoning based on the information we have. As humans, we evolve around the information we receive, and then we want to use it to maximize whatever objectives we have as an existence. If you want to drive from home to work, you want to know the best times to drive to work so that you avoid traffic. You want to minimize on fuel costs. You want to know the kind of programs your children should be watching. You want to know whatever economic dispensations are there so that you're able to save money and then prevent yourself from having the next haircut whenever it comes. So all these things require a lot of thought. And like Raymond was saying earlier, there are certain times, for example, something like proofreading or let's say legal work, for example, there are volumes, literally volumes of things to read and analyze. That as a human being, you probably take a year to do. It's like back when calculators were introduced, you could do maths faster than I was luckily at the point. When I went to school, I luckily reached the point where I learned how to use a slide rule and logarithmic tables before calculators came. I saw the jump. That was back in 93, 94 when I was in Form 4, Form 5. I saw the jump in efficiency. And we are used to having people build websites, etc. And now with AI, we are now coming to see that second jump. So I think I called it something like in our lifetime, we've seen 2 huge leaps in human technology or human technology usage. So I think that we are at a point where these things are going to define every aspect of our lives going into the future. The children today, who we call the Gen Alpha, are already accustomed to these things. They are using apps, or younger people are using apps like TikTok, etc., that already have algorithms or models that show them things that they might be interested in seeing and tailoring specific experiences for them. And that is how the future is going to be, because in the midst of all the sea of information out there, you need to pick what is good for you or what you think is good for you. And sometimes you would need some assistance to do that. And even for whatever work you are doing, you would need some kind of assistance to help you do that work efficiently, because you are in competition with so many other people, and that competition is not going to stop anytime soon, because the tools that are at your disposal are the same tools that are at the disposal of somebody else in Singapore, somebody in Australia, or somebody in London, or somebody in Tokyo. So then the point now becomes, at what point do you begin to look at the tools and see how they can, first of all, be used to maximize whatever your objectives are, or secondly, protect you from people who can use those things to also destroy you, which is also the other side of the coin.
Great. So let me come in studio now. And look, Spike, this is what I want us to do. There could be somebody listening to us today who's asking himself the simple question. I've heard a lot about AI, artificial intelligence. What is it? Before we get into how it makes our life easy and how it could also hurt us. What is it?
So artificial intelligence is essentially a tool that's been developed to learn from data that we've fed it, existing data over time, and make certain predictions or analysis based on that data. So, I mean, it's easier to use the example that everybody knows right now, ChatGPT, which is a language processing model, because there are different AI models. So ChatGPT's job is to process language, basically. So you talk to it, it responds. It's processed data that has been fed it. And when we say data, we're not just talking about just numbers. You know, when we hear data, we're thinking what data analytics and those who data scientists do with data. But this is essentially like write-ups, documents, years and years, gigabytes, terabytes, petabytes of data that's been fed to a huge computer. So it processes it and it learns. It finds similarities, it finds trends in it, and starts to learn and improve based on all that data that it's received.
Great. So these artificial intelligence, the critical question is, how do they help us?
It depends on the industry. So back to ChatGPT, which is obviously the most popular AI tool right
It's
now.
helping a lot of students, we're told.
It is, because it's creating data, it's creating content from data that it's learned from. So say we decided we're going to feed it with scripts of morning show right from 1995 to now. ChatGPT should be able to answer questions about guests who've been on the show based on the introduction the hosts do every single time. It should be able to give us predictions based on trends that it has studied from discussions that have been had on this show. It should be able to even talk about the kind of conversation. It would even be able to predict the kind of conversation that we're going to have based on even just the topic, or even start to help you, create the show, or script the show, or plan how the show should go. There's other AI tools like DALL-E and Midjourney, which are used for art. So they can generate photos or images based on text prompts. So I tell it, I want to see a bald-headed man wearing a kaftan sitting in a radio studio talking into a microphone.
Spiky.
With a bit of grey in the beard.
With a bit of gray in the beard. And trust me, it would generate
Wasting.
somebody like Winston.
Ah.
It can't generate. So it won't generate Winston. It could generate a Winston based on the data that it has. I tried it recently where I was asking it to generate an image of a woman wearing kente standing by a taxi talking on a cell phone. And it did generate something quite close to that. But none of it looked like, it did look like people that existed. But if you look closely, you would see that there were a few things that needed ironing out. But that's normal because it's still learning. And because of the limited data it has on Ghanaian taxis, right? If there's a lot of data on Ghanaian taxis, it would get that right. Anybody can try. It's very, very dependent on the data that it's fed. So Ghanaian data is not that much on the internet, so it might struggle, or it might be confused that, okay, if Ghanaian people are posting this as taxis, this must be a taxi, right? It doesn't know what a taxi is until it learns from the data that we feed it. So if you post, let's say, a black car, and every time it sees a black car, there were taxis around it, it's going to assume that a black car is a taxi. So it's only use black cars and represent them as Ghanaian taxis, because anytime it sees taxi in the context of the Ghanaian statement, it's a black car. So to it, that's a taxi. And this is how all these generative AI tools work. They work based on the tools that they find, the data that they find, and if that data is polluted, it will give you the polluted results. If that data is clean, it will give you clean results.
Look, I'll get back to you and Raymond about on a question about whether we are not moving too fast with this AI thing, because all of a sudden everything is changing around us. But Salom, this morning I was reading a message from Dasagla, who's a CEO of Koba. I hope he's able to join us. We'll get him to join us shortly, because he makes the point that, look, in Africa where you have 60% of the population being either youth, many of these jobs that AI can do are entry-level jobs, and these are normally the starting point for the youth. And so with a lot of dependence on AI, we are making, or there's a possibility of making, many of these young boys jobless in future? Salo.
It's both ways. The thing about it is this. Like I said earlier, there was a time when my mom is was trained as a stenographer secretary, which means that she went to government secretarial school, was in the typing pool, the typing letters, etc., etc., etc. The presence of, or the introduction of computers began to make stenographer secretaries extinct. But does it mean that a lot of young ladies these days don't have jobs? No. What it just means is that we just have to evolve. And the point about it is that, Kobe made a very, very, very interesting point, which we need to look at. There are so many different models for AI that are going to come up. What that means, especially for people, let's say in developing countries, Ghana included, is that since a lot of our data has never been documented or curated or clustered in forms where you can derive patterns from, this is the time for those who want to lead in the industry to have a market opportunity where they can begin developing some of these models, so that model developers can now begin to say that, okay, we will need to start collecting data on, let's say, Ghanaian foods. And then young people can then have jobs where they take data on some of these Ghanaian foods, parameterize them according to certain characteristics, which can then be fed into a model. There is so much opportunity in this space, especially in the area of data science, collecting data, methods by which we can collect the data, which we can use with smartphones, etc. And there are also certain other things that we need to look at or innovate beyond just what we see, because a lot of what we see in the AI space is being led and dictated by what you see in the Western world, because they have introduced it or they have brought it into existence, so to speak. So they are using it in ways that is applicable to them. We do not need to take that template wholesale and then deploy that template here, especially in Ghana and Africa, where our needs are also different. Now, if you want to think about, let me give you a very crazy analogy, which will make this maybe sound better. We require so many predictive models in Ghana, for example, that we do not have access to the tools that do that. So what do? A lot of people go to pastors and prophets so that they can be able to predict and analyze stuff. And these pastors and prophets, for example, are people whose jobs were threatened if we had very smart AI models, because a lot of people won't go for Akwanche if they can have their data fed into something to know their projected market and know that instead of going to pour 3 eggs and 2 schnapps in front of your shop, you would need to change your logo from green to red to be able to attract certain types of clients and customers. So you would need to do marketing in a certain way. So these are some of the things that you see, the world is opening up, and that side is opening up in a way that we cannot even fathom or imagine, but has to evolve. And therefore, it means that the kind of focus that we have to put on skill development should shift. It should shift from this chew and pour thing, because now chew and pour is irrelevant. There are petabytes of data out there that can be accessed. So what it means is that we now have to begin to look at particular skills or particular skill sets and train people for particular skill sets that require them to consume some of these things and then use them in whichever dispensation that they would want to be in. And whether it is in the space of let's say cuisine, whether it's in the space of medicine, whether it's in the space of
Hello, Salam. Hi, Salam.
areas.
Okay.
Yeah, hello.
Yes, we lost you when it got to the place of cuisine. I don't know if you can continue from there. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, whether it's in the area of cuisine, whether it's in hospitality, whether it's in the of tourism, for example, we can then begin to start building models that will tell us that, for example, we need more tour guides, or we need people to be tour guides in a particular waterfall because the people who went there reviewed it, felt that the experience there was better than probably the more popular waterfalls that we know. So these are things that we would now have to start building if we want to be conscientious about it. And it is time that we begin to look at it not in the traditional way where there's an initiative for X or Y, but then I believe that it takes some of us in the tech space to begin to start exploring and innovating on this space, to create our own models that we can own, that tell our story better or analyze our situations better. Because, if everybody's going to rely on ChatGPT or DALL-E, like Kobe said, when you say, for example, a typical a Ghanaian taxi, they would pick a Toyota Corolla instead of something else, and it will create the wrong impressions because, of course, we have not been able to build the systems that have been right enough to glean the correct data that can be used to make decisions. So there's a lot of work there in terms of the fundamentals, in terms of the kind of data that we collect them, and then the types of models that we build, because the model that will be relevant for, let's say, a Caucasian or a Japanese or an Asiatic person will be different from the model that works for us. Our climate is different, the foods we eat are different, the types of farms that we have are different, the practices that we have are different, our religion is different. Therefore, it means that we have a big opportunity here to begin to start developing things that will match our system because the tools are there. Now, what we need is the intellectual power of people who are willing to start creating and building those tools to now begin to make it make sense for us.
Asala, you've talked about, the prospects, the job prospects in there. But the reality also is that some of these things that you've talked about would mean some people would no longer have jobs. And so let's look at, let's do the analysis and look at the number of jobs that's likely to create and the number of jobs that are likely to be lost. And we'll probably be, coming to the conclusion that more jobs could be lost than more jobs being created, isn't it?
It looks that way when you just want to take a cursory glance at it, that 97 million jobs are at threat. It's very easy to look at the threats and then not focus on the opportunities because it's an area of uncertainty. But then you know for certain that certain people are going to be cut off from the workforce. This is where I say that we need to begin to think more innovatively, because the fact that jobs are going to be lost doesn't mean we shouldn't undertake a certain process, because then it means that we get more efficient with time. You do not need to have these are things we talk about in daily politics. I don't want to skew this into politics. You don't need 100 ministers to have a successful government. You need efficient people. And it cuts across everything in life, because even to be able to have all those jobs, it means you must have revenue to pay all those people. Now, if you have a situation where you can make more revenue and then cut more jobs to have the same objective, what it means is that for every rational businessman, you would go that route to be able to make more money, and that money can then be invested into areas where those job losses can then be job gains, because they'll be channeled. What we need to do is we need to start asking ourselves, what is the future looking like, so that we build our curriculum so that we do not train people who will be redundant from day one. And that thought process needs to start now, because you see, what we do not know, and then yesterday I posted on Facebook and I said, there are models that are coming up in AI that we do not own, that we do not control, that we do not have a say in how they are built or how they are designed. These things are going to start making decisions for us. So if we want to ensure that we are going to secure some kinds of industries and have some future for them, it means that we have to now start looking at what models we can build that will be relevant for our dispensation, for our goals, for our long-term outcome. What do we what is our objective, for example, as a nation, or as where do we see ourselves placing ourselves on the continent? For example, where do we see our extractive industries going? Where do we see our human resource going? In the next 30, 40 years, our population is going to double. If it doubles, it means that we need certain resources more than others. We would now need to start building those tools to be able to meet the demand that will come then. But if we throw our hands up and say AI is going to take all the jobs, so it's a bad thing, the world will move and leave us behind.
Okay. I'll get back to you. I'll get back to you on, I mean, since you started talking about some of the things we must even do, I'll get back to you so we could discuss how, even as a country, we can use AI to enhance our life and our development. But Raymond, I mean, some persons, including Elon Musk, is concerned that we're moving too fast.
He says, I mean, he joined other tech titans in calling for a pause in the AI race due to the profound risk, that's how they call it, to humanity. Tech leaders are urging to wait until the world is certain the effects will be positive and risks are manageable. This is how they put it. They say the race of artificial intelligence is very dangerous and the fate of all mankind is at stake. However, the risk of this danger at the moment do not frighten laboratories which are actively competing to provide the most powerful AI engines. Someone talked about how people thought machines. In fact, there is a professor, Callisto Juma, who have traced how basically every single advancement in technology came with opposition, including the telephone. At some point, we were told that telephone was very dangerous. Internet also became another danger source. In fact, some likened it to possibility of the world coming to an end. And it's every single advancement has its positive and negative. Yes. But the most important part is, as country Ghana, do we have a specific policy direction towards it? What do we want to gain from that particular space? We cannot be, on one hand, discussing evolution and developments in digitization when that's like centuries back, when we are not interested in what the latest advancements are. We cannot pretend that we are under some very nice rock, or we are in a cave. We are insulated from what happens in the rest of the world. People will debate some of these things because it comes at a frightening note. But when the dust settles, are we part of the people who are advancing it? Are we teaching it to our generation so that they'll be competitive? I read an article about what will set aside the next generation of workers. So, like Salam said, nobody will care about your knowledge. They will actually be interested in your insight. Have we tuned our curriculum in ways that it provides better insight, that the product that we are putting out there is one that's up to the par, that if today JP Morgan is recruiting, he will be one of the people that's even considered from Ghana qualified to be there. I hope you get my point.
Yeah.
Because it is very simple. We complain every day about, even today, we still complain that jobs in certain sectors are predominated by expatriates. It's because there's a skills gap. Are we building that particular base so that we can, because tomorrow, I'm not saying that in the next 4, 5, 10 years or 20 years, and now the projection is saying that next 4, 5, 10 years or 20 years, some robots will wake up one day and drive Imbura and go out of this place and start doing every job. That's what they're saying. They're saying that the advancement make it very difficult for Imbura to justify his job description. What can we do to advance that job description? Just like some messengers were made useless with the development of telephones. You get what I'm trying to say? Just like, there is this picture that's shown in the world that before drones became fashionable, even the advanced world, we have not bought helicopters for reporting. We were using helicopters. There was a pilot. There was also the cameraman who was filming, and sometimes had a reporter. The understanding then is that all of these people will be replaced by a drone with somebody sitting in a corner managing that. We did not say that was a massive job loss. Why are we removing 4 people from the job and giving it to one person? It's how the world will go. Businesses will make smart decisions. They will justify those decisions to their directors with the hope that they will advance that space and make it better. The bigger problem is that we wait too long. We wait too late to be on board with the rest of the world. We pretend, and tomorrow, we will be hearing Ghanaian researchers tell us that, oh, in the sub-region we are doing well because we have 2 courses being done in Ashesi and other universities about artificial intelligence. No, they will tell us that you'll be hearing them. They would comparing us to the people who are not doing anything serious about it. We will never get to the stage where we are compared to the very best of the world, so that the very small things, people are discussing today, cancer detection with what they call scanners that are AI induced, to the point that they can infuse it in your home. The slightest indication of it, then you can go to the hospital. Then you can do more incision of a surgery that's a bit more complex. That's the conversation. We are discussing providing light for theaters, to the point that people have to actually donate to them. We are completely lost in a world that's advancing. Let's not be excited by the small things we do. Let's not be mediocre in our thinking, because nobody is waiting for you. It is that space that I am worried we are not getting so much into.
Okay.
So even in this place, when you raise the issue of AI, I say, oh no, it will not happen. And you see why we don't even have power. They say we don't even have internet penetration very high. But you are just telling yourself that you are still very much below the ladder, and you need to get up better on the ladder.
So someone just sent me a message and says that speaking of AI, Dr. Stephen Moore, a lecturer at UCC and co-founder of the Ghana Natural Language Processing, has been awarded
Got some money, yeah.
a $30,000 grant by Google AI Research Unit to build a language AI tool, Ghana Natural Language Processing, which can support computers translate text or voice into any Ghanaian language, and by extension, several African languages.
You know, I was discussing with you the Abna AI one, right?
Yes.
It's doing some of those things, and it's a very nice one. If your grandmother could not actually read, and they have even visual problems, you just name the part of the Bible they want you to read in the language that you want, and it reads it to you nicely.
So let's continue the conversation. I still have Solon Brandt here, Kobe Spikey, and Raymond. Kobe Spikey. So the conversation now is that we seem to be moving too fast, and this AI could become a threat to humanity. Are we moving too fast? Does it become a threat to humanity?
I mean, technology has been moving faster than every industry since its inception, and to think that AI is the only thing that we should be putting the brakes on just sounds like we're focusing on only the negatives. But like Raymond was saying, there are a lot of positives that we also need to focus on. I believe that jobs will be lost, yes, but that's also the fault of the jobs that are the people who are doing the jobs that are being lost. It's the same thing as Selom was talking about how our educational system needs to evolve. The risk exists, yes, because we are not prepared for it. The same thing when data privacy concerns came with social media. Everybody was now running to talk about how we're going to start regulation. The regulators are always late to the party because you can't really predict, the next tech revolution. We all thought it was the metaverse. Even Mark Zuckerberg thought it was the metaverse, invested so much money into it, and now he's having to pivot because AI has come to overshadow the metaverse. But that does not say that, yes, there isn't a risk. There is a risk. Somebody could take that data that is being used somebody could take this AI or any AI model, feed it with a certain data and come up with something. I was telling you off air how a bad player or a bad actor could decide that, hey, I want to learn how to make, say, a bomb, and put it into a language processing model, and it would give it step by step the process to making that. You don't want that information falling into the wrong hands, let alone every hand. So yeah, there has to be certain regulation. There has to be certain measures that are put in place to ensure that certain information or certain data is not fed into the model first of all. So it's not, nobody can find ways of circumventing the safety measures that have been put in place to get that information. Then you also have to make these institutions that are doing these kinds of research available to external audit. They should be able to, allow themselves to be audited by an external auditor who's come to check to see if the data that is being fed is safe. Could not bring about a certain risk, because students are going to start using these things. They're already using them, but assuming that parents now who don't know anything about the internet as it is, let alone AI, and their kids who are in school, in primary school, start using AI tools like ChatGPT to be doing their assignments, you think your child is doing very well because their homeworks, is coming with high grades and everything, but a child has found a way to get all the answers just by feeding the questions into ChatGPT. Gets to the final exam, they're not doing well. So I'm confused. What's happening to my child? They do well with assignments, but when it comes to final exam, because they're not learning. But if you understand, the trend or what's happening, even the teachers know this, and they find ways to tailor the whole syllabus around these available tools, because mind you, they would know it's available and they would resort to it. How do you then let them take advantage of it rather than just use it to just get by, finish my homework fast so I can go play my games?
Great. So on that note, Raymond, before I get to Salom, let's look at some of the tools available. I mean, the very common ones that we're used to, because we're having this conversation and it may seem like just having an abstract conversation. So what are some of the AI tools that are available that today is making our lives very simple? Yes, I know of a lot of students have resorted to ChatGPT today. The lecturers are saying we will subject them to, street proof to find out whether they are AI assisted. But what are some of the tools?
Yes, you mentioned ChatGPT, for example. Yeah. There are others. People do not know that. I don't know if it's Killbot, right? That's a very nice way of actually using and writing options to. They're not the only one. Writerly also helps you write very wonderful essays, but they will edit for you. They will point out where there might be defects, and you can actually correct them before you even submit your own work. There are paraphrasing tools that are so powerful out there,
which can be even used to paraphrase stuff that has been generated from ChatGPT to beat teachers who are trying to catch.
The students will not be happy with it.
But I mean, the teachers won't be happy either.
Yeah, and there are ones that are equally important in that space. People do not know that Grammarly, which they might be used, is also an AI tool. And Grammarly is so important that if you have Grammarly on your setup, and it's even the free one can help you point out how concise your writing is, how terrible it is, the areas that you got it wrong. So at least you have a better writing ahead of it.
Even the tone.
It can make it harsher or actually improve it. I'm talking about writing because that's what mostly people do and it helps them on. People do not know that ChatGPT can help you write your email. Feed it specific information. It will give you a very nice email. I know people today who are drafting press statements. They are drafting responses. I know people are actually drafting recommendation letters through this means. And very soon, and I know that politicians will start using them too. Because really, how do you recruit 4 people in your press team when you can get these two to help you do the same job in a very nice way? Now, if you move outside the zone of what they call it, writing, and those of you who are journalist-oriented ones, there are so many tools that you can rely on, not just for how do you call them? Not just for writing, but also for other basic needs. I just need to write Sonic. Right, Sonic's also come out for massive review because of how it helps people to complete their works within the time. Ask your PDF. See, Winston, you just have to upload the PDF. Then ask the questions. 174-page PDF of, let's say, a Supreme Court ruling. Ask the questions like, what does it say? What's the final ruling here? Summarize everything for me. It will give you a summary. Ask it for length. It will give you a 1-page summary. You can move beyond that. Ask it for specific issues raised. If you were doing that job today, I'm so convinced that taking you weeks, months, and sometimes that's why they tell you that I'm reviewing an entire judgment and law students will have a difficulty 1 whole week. You can't finish it because it's 174-page ruling. But Ask Your PDF can actually reduce that nicely for you. So it makes your understanding of it easier and it makes it brilliant for you. It's almost like what Legon used to teach language study skills. And summary was an important part of the exam. Can you believe that? That summary, summarizing a whole passage or everything was an important part of it. But this one does it for you in seconds. You don't even have to worry yourself over that. You get that easily done. Now, most of the other things that you get to know are in areas that many people will really have their, how do you call it? Making lives easier for you. So people sometimes do not know that even ride-hailing apps have elements of AI that makes it very easy for them to roll out where to meet you, avoiding traffic. You know, I use what they call some of these ride-hailing apps a lot. There are times that there's a fight. I tell the guy that no, there's the fact that there is a red sign shows that there's traffic there. This man, even though he's driving the car, is not aware that his own app can detect where there's massive traffic and give him an alternative route that he can actually use in this case. So it is implemented in those forms too. And I was going to list give me a second. I need to pull up a list I did about where else it's making massive impacts. For example, vector embedding has a very nice way, the AI image generation that we were talking about. If I wanted, and there was a competition last year, that the best artist was an artwork developed from AI. Those in the industry players were very worried about it. They're talking about spending months to actually creatively put up something. But Vector & Co has very nice ways of doing that. Now, you know Bloomberg has GPT for AI, right, for finance. If you go to their website today, you'll be so impressed with how they break down finance information from across the world. I'm not sure the Ghana one, if you select Ghana, it doesn't give you the information. Like, I'm not saying there's no information on Ghana, I'm saying that it doesn't give you the verified information that one would have expected. But that is almost making it very easy for people who have no proper grounding in finance to understand it, to even query it for answers that ideally would have gone sit before somebody as a finance expert to give you and update you on.
You know,
Yes.
when Raymond was talking about the image generation, it brought to bear one of the reasons why people are really worried about AI. And I watched a video on Facebook a couple of days ago, which was done totally using AI. AI wrote the scripts, AI synthesized the voices, AI created the footage, everything in there. Now I'm talking about voices like Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin, and newscasters that were all synthesized by AI. And this is where the risk is. People already can't tell truth from fact. I mean, from fact from fiction. Because we see stuff online, our parents constantly forwarding us stuff, which is obviously fake news. So imagine getting to the point where even you can't determine what's fake news anymore, because I can obviously take your face. There are tools today that I can take your face and make you say something. I can synthesize your voice and just create a deep fake where Winston is calling Raymond, hurling certain insults at Raymond. I send it to Raymond and say, this is what Winston says about you. He looks at it. It is you. It is your voice. And it's something you could have said. So
a perfect example would be that the Pope is not in 9 clubs. You've seen those pictures, right? So I'm on the Catholic page where there's a picture like that. So come and see the people getting fits over that. They are very angry. But how is this Pope behaving this way? He's becoming too liberal. Why is he appearing in a nightclub? Half of the time, those pictures were just generative pictures. I mean, I felt it was funny, but you couldn't really call out old people and tell them that, hey, this is wrong. But I have to explain to them that this is how it can be used. It can be used for very good things. It can also be used for very terrible things. So unless you're able to detect it properly, like the way there were tools previously to detect fake pictures, if you're unable to detect that, you might think, for example, those Pope pictures spreading around, that the Pope is in a nightclub. Or
he's with swag.
Or he has fresh tattoos all over his body. And did you get my point?
I get it. So I mean, yes, you're making a point. You want to wrap it so that I get to Nelson Koshida Sagla, who's CEO of Koba. He has some different views. He's joining us via Zoom.
Just a last list. I mean, there's Scribbler. Scribbler's job, and Scribbler is to draw beautiful art. And there is also Network Oracle. Search on your contact and ask an AI assistant questions on your own contacts. Actually, TrueWind is AI-powered bookkeeping and finance for startups. Clarity AI implement up-to-date info from the web into OpenAI-powered searches and learn from a book. This helps you conversations on whichever book you want. Then can give you the details, questions and answers. There is Movio. You create your own custom avatar. So, like you were describing the possible Winston, the bald-headed man with beard with a bit of a grey in it and all of that. Yes, kaftan wearing most of the time. And prompt management made easy. Generative show notes, timestamps, newsletters. That's Pod Squeeze. And there's also ChatGPT Robotics. That's a demo app for principles and model abilities. Now, Open Insights is a new chatbot that goes beyond pulling answers from help centers and with articles being involved in that. And there's open source CSV importer. See, those of us that learned data science not long time ago, do you know how we're doing it? If you're not relying on comma separated values, when we're using Excel to do it, now you don't need to. It would first, we needed a tool for cleaning or clean it yourself. Now, if you have the data, you just log it in. It will clean, it will distribute, it will narrate it into maps and all the graphs that you want, and you just have to query it, ask it, do it this way, it will do it for you. Okay. Do it that way, it will do it for you. So the job of a data scientist, that used to be a very long route, separating, and data cleaning was difficult. But now all of them have been simplified with this one I just mentioned, and the others that are like this one.
Let me get on to Zoom again. Dasagla, good morning.
Good morning, Chief. How are you?
We're doing very well. I believe you're fine too.
Yes, I am fine.
So you've had some concerns. You've had concerns with what it could do to even jobs, for instance. You've referenced, some of the things that AI would do, being entry-level jobs that, the teeming youth in Africa would need. Those in studio and on Zoom, Selim Brantia, Kobe Spikey, Raymond seem to disagree. They say, why not? AI is supposed to make life simple for them, so you probably should also be thinking about how you could develop other skills, take advantage of it, and also make yourself relevant. Shouldn't that be the way to go?
All right, I get that point, but I'm not worried about the emerging technologies, but how we apply them constructively, keeping in mind our demographics. At the micro level, individual level and everything, it's exciting, the new technologies that are coming, how they make us individually more efficient and all the like. But let's also pay attention nationally, as I tried to raise earlier regarding the African continent, for example. Most of these technologies are coming in to automate processes, most of them at entry level, and take out the inefficiencies around that area. But what are the demographics? How do we see that? I was trying to explain. 65% circa of the African continent are youthful. They are now coming out of school. Take Ghana. We even have statistics that shows that about 85% of the Ghanaian population are dysfunctional literate. What it means is that they cannot even comprehend very well. Means that what are the type of jobs that they can do? The kind of jobs they can do are jobs that AI and technology is taking. Let me give you a classic example. You step out of university, you want to work in the bank. When you were entering, what level do you enter? Maybe a teller. Now, ATMs are taking over the role of a teller, so that job is going. We're saying that those guys should up their games, but we're also forgetting about the fact that with this huge number, and the statistics are there to show, I'll run through some of the statistics shortly. We're saying that some of these jobs, the individuals should up their games. What are the services or the options available to them? We've not provided those services as a country. And so what happens is that they obviously fall into joblessness. And so, yes, the technologies are there, the technologies are good. But where do we apply that? I believe that because of the youthful nature of our continent, we need to apply these technologies at the decision-making level and get the youth to grow into that. If we want to apply them at the entry level, we are going to create problems for ourselves in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, where we may even be running ourselves extinct because most of the people who are going to be growing out are not going to be equipped with anything, and therefore they will just die out, if I'm allowed to put it that way. So yes, I'm excited about the technologies. I'm a technology person myself. They are going to make me work more efficiently. My small business will work more efficiently. But at the macro level, we need national policies to help in the adaptation of some of these technologies to make sure that we hold ourselves up together. If something's got to give for us to run very well and find use of our youth, we need to do it. We don't just jump wholly onto the technologies as they come. This is my position to it, and we can talk about it subsequently.
So, Spiky, Raymond, you've heard him now. He's, explain his position.
I get the point. Okay, just briefly on this one. I get the point about what strategies, and we've said the same thing. Ghana as a country, China has a policy and direction as to AI development. In fact, when Elon Musk and co were raising issues, they asked for regulation and agency control. And agency control and regulation here means that who is monitoring the advancement, making specific rules for the space so that it is to more good than bad in this case. In our local scenario, and I said that, what's our policy direction for AI development? What's our policy direction for the future of work with AI? If we detail some of these things clearly, it would make sense that some will lose jobs. Now, funnily, there's an article that was released a couple of weeks ago, March 17th, on GPTs are GPT, an early look at the labor market impact potential large language models, for example. This is what it says. Our findings indicate that approximately 80% of the US workforce could have at least 10% of their work tasks being affected by the introduction of GPTs, while around 19% of workers may see at least 50% of their tasks impacted, and talks about the influence being across the board. Let me label some of the places that says will be protected when it comes to GPT. It says occupations without any exposed tasks, agriculture equipment operators, athlete and sports competitors, automotive glass installers and repairers, cooks, short order, cutters and trimmers, hand, dishwashers, dredge operators, electrical power line installers and repairers, excavating and load machine, but you say meat, poultry and fish cutters and trimmers, motorcycle mechanics and stone masons, tippers, tire repairers and changers. This is for just language models, really. So GPTs have no exposed tax risk to this particular area, at least for now. What government today can do is that, okay, which people are in these areas, how do we plan for that particular sector and deal with it? Because we cannot, and I insist, live in a world where we pretend to be isolated and not taking advantage of it. It is up to you, a state, Republic of Ghana, to take the good, know how to manage the bad, and properly run it in a way. What you cannot do is to pretend first and foremost that, oh well, it won't get here. Our internet penetration is still low. Our people are not such high skilled in the jobs. I recall there was a time that William Boatin encoded a report that suggested that we're having a very huge underemployment in this country. Rarely, high skilled people were looking for low skilled jobs.
Lots of you sending messages now. I saw one that actually got me laughing. Adumevi promises, why do I feel that one day God will put everything on factory reset with all this AI introduction? Okay. Then at Lawson _2 says, I was surprised when I found out that boys use ChatGPT to give women lines.
Aaron says, when he sees a woman, he'll go and describe the woman, then get feedback on how do I say this is nice about this woman. I mean, it can also help.
It does help.
Yeah, but would you be deep from your heart? I mean, seriously, the expectation you're having an emotional expression.
Not everybody's mouth plays music.
Okay, yeah. So it increases the competitive level.
At PK Mante, at PK _Mante, which is a point, and I think all of us will be interested in this, says, I've been testing ChatGPT. It held up fairly well until I started asking questions related to Ghana. More data is needed.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We need to do so.
Okay, then at Nana Kweku says, it's not always accurate. I used ChatGPT to solve my questions and I got it all wrong. Okay.
Yeah,
But you have to know.
No, because you don't know what you are about in the first place.
I do. What I'm doing, I was doing a report on a device, and I asked ChatGPT about the device. At the time, ChatGPT's data was from 2021. So the device released in 2023, it doesn't know. But it made certain, it tried. And I had to correct it along the line. So you have to know what you're about. Otherwise, you will get all wrong.
Yeah, and that's how students also fail in this area. Don't make it your next teacher, right? I mean, in all fairness, it's supposed to help you out. If, for example, you don't know what you are doing and you wait till last 2 minutes your exam, then you go and copy everything. Then even how you query it, you need to learn how to query it properly.
Yeah, the prompt.
Not wake up and just dump your question. Then whatever comes, you copy and give to your teacher.
Now, Nanaya Code says, after OpenAI deployed ChatGPT, I find myself buying less tutorials. My last was full stack development, full stack dev. And at G_Omzi says, our problem is data. Let us start by building proper database and documenting data. So let's wrap it up with you. So we've all talked about, how this could shape our lives and probably shape our country. Raymond has been talking about some of the tools. You've talked about how Ghana could take advantage. How do we take advantage as a country, and going for some of the things that could change if we were to take advantage of AI? Salam.
Yes, so basically we've all talked about AI as if it's a kind of a locked process, but then we have to situate it in the ecosystem. When I say in the ecosystem, I'm talking about in our ecosystem in terms of human activity, human interactions, culture, language, our expectations and everything. So basically, if you ask me now, in spite of the fact that I'm one of the people who always proposes for very lean government, I believe that this country needs a chief data officer. A chief data officer or a data officer, a national data agency that would now probably look at all the data that we have as a country. I think this is a function that the Statistical Service provides, but would now have to look beyond just statistics. And they do quite a lot of data processing. But then we now have to develop a national data roadmap, a national data plan to be able to look at all the emergent issues that are coming up and where it makes us competitive as a nation that's a developing country that is still focused on an extractive economy, a primary economy, if you should put it that way, where everything comes from the ground, literally. We need to situate this and then see where we can position our human resource going into the future to be more data conscious, or to collect more data points that will then create the kind of development that we have. As a nation, what do we see? Where do we see ourselves 30, 40 years from now? Where do we see ourselves 20 years from now? We should note that the advancement we see today is just the tip of the iceberg. Analysts I identify, or I've read in novels and stuff, and even my son, who's Gen Alpha, if you should put it that way, that's those born after 2013 or 2012. Those born after 2010 are Gen Alpha. They are anticipating a future where computers are sentient beings, meaning that computers are not going to just do artificial intelligence, but there might be a point where they might even have their own intelligence and make decisions. So if we are looking at that kind of future, where do we situate ourselves in it? As a gold producing nation, as a cocoa producing nation, as a future lithium producer or whatever, with our resources, our natural resources, etc., how are we situating all of these things like migration data, things like access to health, etc.? How are we situating all of these in a world where computer models are going to run the space? And I think this is where we should go. This is what we should begin to focus on, because in all of these things, we are talking about us having a giant machine at our disposal, a machine that can solve lots of things faster than we do it now. Already we have a country where even when the tools are available, we refuse to use or deploy those tools because of petty politics or other such interventions that really do not have anything to do with the goal. And I think we need to as people in the media especially, we need to begin to start drumming home that we cannot still keep things as they are now when we have things that other people have that is going to transcend or jump them into the future. So basically, I think that we are at a point where just like the mobile phone or the mobile telephony introduction jumped us from not using phones at all to now using phones for everyday use. We have the ability to innovate in this space and then do things in a way that we might jump the whole beginning of AI and actually begin to consume it in ways that even the West would not have thought possible. I think we just need to have a nurturing environment that brings all these young innovators out, that will then let them create things that become not only something that we use in Ghana, but a driving force across the whole of Africa, because we have the innovative minds to do that. And
hello, Salam. Hello. Okay, I think we've lost Salam. Let me wrap it up with you, Dasegla. So how do we situate ourselves in the future as a country?
Well, I think to add to what Salam said, I believe...
Okay, I think technology may have failed us.
Not artificial, though.
I said technology may have failed us.
I thought it was so now.
Is that Segla? Yes, that's Segla. Yes, yes. I mean, yes. Salam has been talking about how we could situate ourselves in this future world of artificial intelligence. Well, it's with us now, but going forward, we should be thinking of situating ourselves. How do we do that finally?
Well, I agree with Salom, and I think we cannot isolate ourselves. We need to get on board. But my worry is about individually we all adopt, individually and in small groups we all adopt, but how we respond nationally and how quickly we respond nationally. Because if we don't and quickly put in place national human resource strategy around technology and other things, we may find ourselves extinct, and we need to work quickly at correcting the anomalies within the demographics where maybe anybody coming out of primary school, for example, should have a certain level of appreciation of technology to drive us forward. Selim mentioned we need a national data officer. I think we need more than a national data officer. We should start thinking about, I don't know if we have it yet, but if not, we need a technology strategy office, national technology strategy office, to start guiding us and channeling us along where we need to go as a nation. Possibly a national
CIO. I think we have NITA, right?
Yeah, that's
okay. Okay, but you go ahead.
Yes, and so we quickly get a strategy office that directs and puts in place where we want to locate ourselves, because without that at the strategic level, at the high level, most of the things are just going to filter into the country, and before you realize it collapses the total fiber. As I said, there's a huge population that is dysfunctional. We, the people who are in the 15% who are functional, are excited about this technology, but we still need the 85%, and therefore there's a lot of work we need to do to bring this human resource to catch up, for them to catch up with you, so we can all enjoy the new technologies and the lovely approaches that we have and directions that we have. That's what I have to say.
Thank you very much, Nelson Koshi Dasegla, CEO of COBA.